Can you still see your face, or can all you see the...
I can just see the presentation. That's just your side, I think.
Okay, good. And then I'll leave you there because it's better for me to be able to see you rather than just be talking at a presentation.
No worries. We started recording, so if we just give it 5 seconds and then start.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 2020 Society Training. I'm Ewan Walker. I'm the Student Development and Volunteering Coordinator. And joining me today is Ross Leaven, the President of Communication and Democracy.
Hi, everyone.
So we've got a full selection of things that we're going to go through today. For some of you who may have gone through our societies training in the past, we've looked to try and build upon what we've had and give you a little bit more, while also acknowledging that we are in a slightly different environment than we're usually doing this. So we have got extra things in there, such as using Teams and a little bit of stuff around communication and marketing that is a bit more relevant in a digital world than it would be on the idea of putting posters around campus.
Okay, so we'll get started on expectations. So we'll look at obviously the expectations of and what you should expect from us and what members will expect from you, and then also what we as the union expect from societies generally. So from our side, you'll have the support of the sabbatical executive and the kind of representation that comes along with that, both in our trustee board or internal stuff and then at the university as well. We're planning, or we're hoping to be very transparent this year with our governance of societies, looking at the societies forum and the various kind of the democratic side of that. And we'll be looking at you get the staff support from Ewan, from Joe, from Greg, and from the wider staff team as well. There'll be training opportunities, promotion opportunities. You'll have the input at the forums, and that's going to look maybe slightly different this year. Along with that, more transparency and making sure that the societies forum is a lot more democratic. And then obviously the things we talk about every year is the insurance and the finances are managed, and you'll receive a lot of communication from us, hopefully. And then you're also able to apply for grants from the union too.
And in terms of what your society members should expect from you, I think that it's fair, if you look at these points, that all of them really, you wouldn't question that if you were to join a society, you would be expecting a reasonably frequent activity or engagement from that group. You would also be looking for value for money. So we do have a minimum £5 membership fee for societies. So it's up to you to provide what would be seen as value for that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they get the cash value of £5 back through gifts and items, but rather the experiences you provide could be seen to have that value. Your society members will also be expecting a fair election process from you, and we'll be covering that later in how to make sure that your AGM and your elections are fitting in with your constitution and your regulations along with our regulations. Accountability from the committee. You are there as volunteers to them. You're volunteering your time to make sure that they get more out of their experience as society members. So accountability from you to them of making sure that you are doing what you say you're going to be doing. And making sure that the society funds that they have invested into are not consistently being spent on non-members. It's an issue that we've had over the past, is that societies feel like they're running out of money because they're putting out a lot of money on events that are for everyone, but not that much money is being invested into events that are specifically for the members who have paid to join. And the key thing that society members should expect from the society is to feel part of a group. It's really important for us that we're creating these small social networks that people can really buy into and be a part of. We don't like the idea that members feel different from committee members and that it's a very separate thing. We want to make sure that this is just one big society.
I think as well, looking at what the union expects from the society, if you've been a part of a society before, if you've been on a committee, you'll have seen it all before. But the main thing for us is that we need you to participate in our democratic events and in our events that we put on your behalf for students. So looking at Freshers' Fair, the Societies Forum, our AGM, and then also the union elections. It's great for us if we can get students to come up through these channels that know about the union, that know how it works, and really have a real drive to make it better. which is where society committee members especially can be great. We've got obviously our democratic rules and governing societies. We've got our regulations and all these things that we need you to abide by. We need you to ensure that you have an up-to-date constitution and development plan, which is something we'll touch on later on as well. The same as every year, you need to have 10 members minimum, fully paid members, and that minimum membership fee has to be £5. We'll be expecting that all students that are involved in the society are fully paid members, and it goes back to what Ewan was saying in the last bit as well, is that it's not fair if we give the society's money through grants, and if students are giving money, that's then spent on students that haven't put that investment themselves. And that leads on to making sure that the grants that we give you, which is looking at the development of the society and improving the society, that needs to be spent appropriately and in the interests of this group and of students as well. And then, of course, we need to make sure that risk assessments are completed and all the other health and safety stuff that we have to look at for events, for activities, that they're all completed as well.
So one of the things that we've had as feedback from our societies training in the past is that our committee roles are a little bit vague, and that we haven't had clear guidelines around what we as a union and you as a committee should expect each person to be doing in those roles. So we have focused down on the 4 mandatory roles. A lot of committees will have additional roles, so a few of these points will fall to someone else from within these roles once you expand your committee out. But for us, we are going to be training based on the 4 mandatory roles and assuming that you have no additional roles from that. So the first thing that we have is the president's mandatory duties. So they are the regular chair for the committee meetings. Now, that's not every activity that your society has, doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be sitting around a table and being adjudicated with a chair and a secretary and going through all those processes. But if you are meeting as a committee to discuss things going forwards, it's best to have formal structure to those. So if you're meeting just the committee with the president being the chair and having someone take minutes, the role of the president in that meeting would be to chair and to move the meeting forward and get things done. It's also their role to make sure that every committee member understands their role and meets the action points and duties that are provided to them. It's very much a leadership role. It's something that is required that you are taking on a little bit of ownership of making sure that others around you know what they're doing. It's your job to make sure that the agenda of the meetings is approved ahead of time. And this shouldn't be done just the day before. You should be kind of approving things ahead of time, making sure that everything is going correctly. It's your job to ensure that the society functions to the best of its ability while also fitting in with our regulations. Again, this is just, you are the president of this society, so a lot of this responsibility will fall to you. And you're responsible for ensuring that your goals for the year are met. There's a few additional bits that will loop over and hit a few of these roles. So authorizing society expenses and being a signatory for the society bank accounts are things that are both for the president and also for the treasurer. It's important for you both to be fully aware of what's going on with the finances of your group. I know that the union does the finances in-house, but it's important that you have your own tracking system for what's going on. You should be keeping up to date with what your expenses are in particular, what those expenses are for, and that way it can build a better picture for you around what events and activities you're doing that are proving to be value and proving to be good experiences. You have ultimate responsibility for making sure that the end of year paperwork is completed. We have to make sure that someone takes on the ownership of those, and for us, that is the president. As with all of the committee roles, you are expected to attend the societies training for this year and potentially going forward. Attend means watch this video. You are responsible for either attending the societies forum or making sure someone else from your committee attends. Now, it is also very important to us that you tell us ahead of time who that person is so that we can invite them in. Sorry. Very bad time of year to be doing this in a COVID off season. So it's important for us that you are also involved in the safeguarding of the sustainability of the society. You are to ensure that the AGM and the committee handover take place in a timely manner and that we are informed of what's going on. We won't be chasing up the treasurer from your committee to find out what's going on with next year. We will be chasing up you as the president. You're also expected to liaise with the union and the student executive. So it's important that you know who I am, know who Ross is, and know who Lemuel is, so that you are able to effectively communicate what your group needs and wants from the union to us. And in the event of a committee vote, the president will have the casting vote. So if you do have only the 4 mandatory positions and it's tied 2-2, whichever side the president is on will win that vote. If you have multiple committee members, what we recommend is that the president doesn't vote until it's needed. That way you can have it sat aside as a tie-break vote.
So I'll come on to this one, looking at the vice president's mandatory duties, and what you, if you've been in this position before, or if you've been part of a committee before, you'll see that there's maybe a slight change in a couple of these roles this year, and we'll come on to the next slide. We'll explain why that is. So the usual ones is if the president can't make a committee meeting, the vice president would be responsible for chairing that meeting. They're responsible for, again, ensuring that the committee members understands these roles, that they have what they're meant to be doing throughout the year, their key duties, their key actions, and just kind of supporting them in carrying out these roles. From the administrative side, it's making sure that the society is up to date with the requirements from ourselves at the union and all the documentation that has to be submitted to us from our regulation side, looking at which fills into some of the criteria for grant requests and all these kind of things. It's also looking to make sure that the committee minutes are recorded and that they are kept for distribution to society members, and then also really importantly to the union as well. It's really important that we are able to keep up to date with how you guys are getting on, and the only way that we can do that is if we're aware of the kind of things that are being discussed in the meetings and any issues that you might have. Also ensuring, as I mentioned earlier on, that the goals for the year that are set by the committee are met. So that fits into the sustainability of the society and the development of the society. So that's a really important role. And then finally, if you're watching this, you'll have already ticked this box, but attending the society's training.
So as I mentioned earlier, with the treasurer having a few responsibilities overlap with the president, this is one of the checks and balances that we've built into the system to ensure that one person making mistakes can't cause too much issue for your society. It requires multiple people to make a mistake for it to be an issue. This way you can have your treasurer also managing the finances of the society and co-authorizing society expenses with the president. If we see a expenses claim form come in that is signed by someone other than the president or the treasurer, we will be contacting those people to see whether or not that is something that we can process. They are ultimately responsible for the finances of the group. We would be looking for the treasurer to provide commentary detailing expense purposes. So this is something slightly new this year, is that we're looking to kind of build a better picture around where and what the money is being spent on, just so that we can use this to better support you. This isn't an additional step just for it being an additional step, but if you are telling us what you're spending your money on, we can then better predict what we need to keep the money away to the side for. So if you're telling us that you're spending this money on specific events throughout the year, we can then start predicting that these events will be happening and keeping that money to the side and better supporting you through those events. We are also going to be having you as a signatory for the bank accounts, just like I said. That is a form that we have that will be sent out to all the societies to have the president and the treasurer sign. Again, if you're watching this, attending societies training is one of these, so you're already ticking a box. You will be responsible for filling out and completing the grant application form on time to ensure that the society gets any additional funding from the union. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. You are also responsible for ensuring that any membership fees and forms that the committee takes in make their way to the union office. Right now, this isn't going to be that much of an issue because all memberships are being completed through our website. But once we go back to also accepting paper forms and cash, this will be something that when you're having events, you will be the person who will be given the forms and the fees to manage and take into the union. And it's also a treasurer duty to investigate sponsorship opportunities. Anything that has anything to do with your group and money really falls to the treasurer. If you're looking for more, if you're looking for better ways to spend it, if you're looking for responsibility around it, the treasurer role is the one who is going to take the key actions on that.
So next we have the communications and engagement lead, which is the position I talked about earlier on. And this is obviously a new position this year and replaces the secretary role. So as of the first day of the semester, which will be the 28th of September, our slightly updated regulations come into force, and that this is part of it. So it was looking at, when we came in this year, is that we thought the secretary role is quite maybe an old-fashioned role. It's a very much admin-based role, whereas what societies are needing now is someone that's in the role specifically looking at the communication side, and both internally and then externally, and then also engagement. So engagement with current members and with new members, as well as with the union. So I think that what you'll have seen with the VP role is the vice president's taken a couple of the more admin-based tasks into their remit, and in this role, which I know a lot of you will already have, whether it's events and marketing and these kind of base roles, but it's looking specifically at the communication and managing that, both, as I said, internally with members and then externally. So you've got to make sure that the email account is checked and that any kind of information or notifications from the union are dealt with. It's looking at keeping society members informed, whether that's with emails, through Facebook groups, for all these different things, through the society's team, which will be a really good channel this year. That obviously comes on to the next point there, and it's just looking at the ways that we can make sure that we're communicating with all society members through a range of channels. I think also it's making sure that the committee minutes are recorded, which fits in it slightly with the VP role as well, but just making sure that that happens and that that information is there for society members and for the union too. Then looking at the external speakers and any events that you're going to have, and make sure that you provide that information to the union and follow the processes that you need to go through from our side and from the governance side of that. And then again, as with all the positions, it's attending societies for training. So here we'll have a look at the support that's available from the union. So there's myself in the role of President Comms and Democracy. Then you've got Linwell, who's our new Vice President of Societies. Ewan, who's the Student Development and Volunteering Coordinator, and then you'll have worked before with Joe, Graham and Greg, who is our new Interim Union General Manager. So kind of looking at what we all do, we've worked, obviously, depending on the year and depending on everybody's workloads, tasks in the past have maybe been gone between the various members of the team, but we've worked this year to try and identify from our side who we would like to do what and who we would like to take a lead on what, just mainly to make it easier for you so you know who you can contact with any queries or issues about a specific area. So for my role, as you all know, it's looking specifically at the democratic and comms side, so chairing the societies forum, looking at your AGMs, looking at your kind of the democratic side of the society, the committee, and these kind of things as well. And then also looking at it from your constitution, it's helping you. Obviously, the constitution isn't a document that's necessarily fully updated every year. So it's helping you understand that and making sure that you're abiding by that and that you are kind of operating within your own constitution and then the union's regulations as well. And then from the comm side, I'll be doing my best to keep you up to date with the updates from us and also helping you communicate with wider students, whether that be through the union's kind of bulletin, our social media profiles, and all these things as well. When I come on to talk about some of the work that you will be doing, I'll also assist with some of that. So looking at the conflict resolution, and all these kind of things that come along with his side. And then finally, as I've said before, I'm kind of represent you to the union's executive, to the trustee board, and then also to the university with any issues that you might have. From Linwell's side, obviously her role is solely based around societies. So she's vice chair of the Societies Forum. She also works to kind of support all of the societies and report back to the executive committee as well. She, along with myself, is a member of the budget and awards committees with Ewan and Greg as well from the staff team side. She kind of works with you and your activities. We'll maybe be looking on, and we'll update you over the next few months about the Society's activities team. So she'll be working very closely with that. And then she'll also sit on some university committees and subcommittees of the board to ensure that she can also feed back your views. So that's us from the kind of officer side at the union. And then from the staff side, we've got Jordan Creasy, who you'll have seen at Societies Forum, who helps us record the minutes of that, communicate that side of thing. He works very closely on the regulations and constitutions of the union, so you can always support if you've got any questions about that. He supports me on that as well. You've then got Ewan and Joe, who you'll have worked with if you've been part of it before. So they look at, Joe helps out with some of the admin tasks, so the print codes and all these kind of things might not be as relevant this year, but going forward, depending what happens, she can help with that, with things like room bookings, and then with the general membership tracking, and looking at some of the events that you'll run, whether that be the balls each at the end of the year, or if there's some events throughout the year that you maybe need a bit of support with. Joe's always more than happy to help with that. And then Ewan, so Ewan obviously is the day-to-day support from the development side, as you as volunteers, and then also the society. So he'll be working with you on your development plans, which we'll touch on, and he'll be looking at the expenditure of the societies and just making sure that grant is spent in the best ways possible. He looks at the external speaker checks, and then all of the roles around that. And then Greg, as Union General Manager, supports us as officers, and then obviously the union staff as well. And currently he's still in his doing part of the marketing and I've forgotten his role. Marketing and design. So he will be able to support with those types of things as well. So I've gone through a list of things there, Ewan. Have I missed out anything, or would you like to summarise in a better way?
I guess the only thing I would say there is if you feel like there's something that hasn't been mentioned there, you're more than welcome to contact either Ross or myself, and we can help you find the right person, because most likely it will be one of us.
Definitely.
So one of the things we've been discussing so far is the fact that we have set you all up with a team on Microsoft Teams. The union has maintained control of these by having Joe and myself as the owners of the groups. What this means is, as students pay membership, we can drop them into your general Teams chat and have them be equal members to kind of just have it as a welcoming landing page. It's been set up in a way that is a little bit limited, so you don't have the full functionality of what a team would do. But that's mostly because of advice and guidance that we've been getting around it from a few students who are very well informed around Teams. And we're looking at how we can evolve and adapt your team over time. But for right now, the way that we're kind of approaching Teams with societies is that you have these welcoming landing pages where all of your members will fall. And then you have a private channel that is for your committee to have a chat. And the idea is that that private channel will take the place of things like a Facebook group or a WhatsApp chat, so that you can keep that kind of in-house and nearby. We don't recommend that you're sharing files that you wouldn't want to. They shouldn't be the only location that files exist if you are sharing them, because they are harder for us to maintain passing forward. But you are able to share things back and forward as a group in there. Just make sure that you are keeping backup copies out with Teams if you are doing that. I know that a lot of people are looking for guidance on how best to get the most out of Teams, but with the way that we've got this set up currently, you're not actually going to be able to get the most out of Teams. You're going to be able to get some out of Teams. So I think it's important that you try and maximize what you've got at the moment. You should be able to have full group meetings. You should be able to tag all members of your society just by tagging the @ and then the society in those teams. So you can hopefully send notifications to everyone who is in your group by doing so. And we're kind of hoping that it takes the place of social media channels rather than taking the place of where all business is operated. If your committee sets up an additional channel or has an additional channel, that we acknowledge and know that this is the case for a few groups, just let us know if you need any support on that from us. We'll be focusing our support on these teams at the moment. So society finances, again, this is something that is always looked for more information around this from us. I'm going to try my best to give you the most information possible without this being just a dry me talking and boring chat. So you have two different accounts with the union. Your first account is your budget account. So two types of money go into that account. The membership money that your members from this year have paid, and any grant that is given to you by the union in order to do what you've asked for. So it's important that you know grant money that is given to you by the union has an expiry date. If you don't use it for what you've said you're going to use it for, it will be taken back. Your membership money, you should always intend on spending the membership money that you've got in that year. I will say that some of that can be rolled over if you have a surplus, as that is student money. But we would look for you to be spending it. The times where it can be rolled over are things like if you have thought that your society is going to have 45 members this year, and you've built your budget and you've asked for a grant and you've worked your way around and you're spending money along with that line, and you end up getting 100 members, that's an additional £250 at £5 a member for the year. So you may have that additional £250 that it didn't cost you extra to run your events. So that can be rolled over and that can go towards your client account, which is where all of your other funds, such as fundraising and sponsorship, goes into that. So if you are doing fundraising activities for yourselves or for others, that money will fall into your client account, and then it will come out of your client account when it's transferred out to external charity organizations if you've done the fundraising for others, or it will just live in your client account if it's for you. And then sponsorship money. If you've had sponsorship, I'll use Revolution as an example. If you've done a sponsorship deal with them and they've sent you, say, £700 or £200, that money will fall directly into your client account. There's no spend by date on this account. This money should be used for long-term society development. So we don't want to see societies that are just racking up thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds in a client account, because that money should be used to grow the society to the point where it's sustainable, but it's not just banking and banking and banking money. So we want to see you use it for solid, productive, and usable things. This is kind of what your finances will look like. You will see that there is a budget code next to the name of the society. That is the code that we assign to your group. So there's a few things that you'll notice here. We use this as an example of a society that hasn't really done any activities. So this group has £5 membership, and in that £5 membership, they have brought in £110. So that's what? I'm blanking. Five? Right, so they have a bunch of members. Why can't I do maths right now? It's really embarrassing when it's being recorded. And in terms of activities that they've used for money, they have printed a bunch of posters, and then they've done a fundraiser that cost them £25. So the overall cost of doing that fundraiser is around £40 as the only activity they've done. And then that fundraiser brought in £100 in fundraising. So there's many points to be made off of this. One, if you're spending £40 to make £100, that's not necessarily a great return on investment for a fundraiser. Could be worse. but it's not great. But also, what are those members getting out of being a member of that society? There hasn't seemed to be any activities, or any activities that they have done haven't cost any money. And that's not saying that you need to make activities cost money just to make them cost money. You don't need to throw pizza at every event to make it valuable to attend. But you can, this is the Eddie Merrick Appreciation Society. Like, I'm sure there is something that could be done to provide value to students who are in appreciation of Eddie Merrick. Maybe bring him in, or get a video of him saying something, pay for a cameo. I don't know. There's a bunch of cool things you can do with money to get things going. The other part that I would mention is that they applied for and got a budget, which is now known as a grant from the union, to do something, but they never used that money for anything. So that money would be taken back and rolled into the union budget again, because we are giving you money specifically to do the activities that you lay out in your grant application. If you tell us that you need £150 in order to run these 6 activities because your membership money isn't enough, and you need to have that money to bulk up and be able to run those activities, we want to see those 6 activities run. If they don't, we have questions as to why you said that you needed the money. The grant from the union isn't core operational cost money. It's, we as a group want to do more than we are financially able to do. Can you please help us to do cool things? Yes, we can help you to do cool things. Ross, do you have any questions about this bit? Because I feel like normally at this point I would ask for questions and there would be some.
I don't think so. Only question is, how many members in that society have bought membership?
It's like 18 or 16 or something.
Let's go with 22.
22, okay, that works.
I think.
You think?
But I, from the finances side, I don't think so. I think it's probably just worth noting that this year we did things slightly differently just because of everything that happened with the closure of campus and the lack of activities, where we transferred over some of that extra finances from the budget account. But that isn't something that will happen. Obviously, going forward, our regulations don't allow for it, and we really do need you to ensure that you can put on activities this year that give members the return for their membership. And there's all these various different ways that we'll look to support you throughout the semester for spending that money, even if it is for online events and these kind of things.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm genuinely mortified that I just like, my brain was like 5, 5, 5, 110. I don't know. And it's embarrassing.
You're okay.
Hopefully no one's watching at this point. So you have 4 main ways to spend the money from your society account. So the first way that you have is the same way that I, as a staff member, would be able to access money if I wanted to purchase something to do my role better. I can spend the money out of pocket, and then I can have the treasurer approve the expense as something that is for the benefit of the society. I then submit an expenses claim form along with the receipts for the item that's purchased for verification through the treasurer or the president to myself. I will then verify it, and then we will return the money to that person via bank transfer. One of the things that we have taken into consideration over the past year is that we used to do a lot of things in cash and check, and I don't know about you, but whenever I get a check, it normally sits for about 3 months before I actually cash it because I don't go to a bank. So we are trying to update our systems to be a bit better about getting money back to students quickly. So our preferred method of payment is now bank transfer. I know it used to be our least favorite, but it's now our favorite. So if you have the ability, if you have a British bank account in particular, bank transfer is great. If you have an international bank account, you're better off getting refunds through PayPal from us. But we can talk about that. That's just, it's not the ideal, but it's something we can do to fix a specific problem. The second way that you can get money out of your account is to send an invoice directly to the union from the supplier that you are using. So if you are going to be having a ball and you have a photographer and a DJ and all these additional things that are going to be running, get them to send their invoices directly to us, and then the money will come straight out of your account. It'll never leave your pocket as a student. So generally this works best for big ticket items. So if you're paying for something that's like £100, £150, getting an invoice sent where possible is great, because it means that you're not out of pocket, even if it is only supposed to be for 4 days. It means that you're not out of pocket. And I know that when I was a student in particular, I didn't have £140 to spend because I was already that close to the bottom of my overdraft. So we like to try and keep these things into consideration. We have an Amazon Prime business account. So if you're making purchases through Amazon, we can definitely help you out. We can get that through Prime, and we can, all you have to do is send us a link to the item that you're wanting to buy it, and we'll process that through, as long as it's also been signed off by the treasurer or the president. And then the last one is if you're looking for a PayPal or credit card payment by us, instead of coming to the office to use the card like this form that is linked currently says, send us a list of the items and we'd look to purchase it. Items that you're looking to purchase and the supplier that you're looking to get them from, and we'll make the purchase for you. We're trying our hardest to make things as easy as possible to access the money, while also retaining a lot of the functionalities around utilizing organizational money that you will experience when you go into the business world.
So we've touched on this when we highlighted the two accounts and earlier on when we were looking at the roles, but the next thing is the grant request, which would previously have been the budget request. So we changed it just a slight change this year just to make it easier, because you've got your budget and it just to stop any confusion around that. But the grant request, the first round of applications will be due the 11th of October. You can get the form from the RG Union website, and it should be submitted through emails. So the criteria for that request is on the form, but as Ewan says, it's not the grants aren't to cover the main operational costs. It's looking at improving the society development and providing that experience for members. So if you're a new society this year, you can only apply for £100, but returning societies can apply for a bit more. And again, that's detailed on the forms on the website. Please do feel free to discuss it with us beforehand. It makes it means that we can kind of advise you on what might be realistic, what might not be as realistic, and just allows for us to have a slightly quicker process when we're actually going through it, and avoids for less there's not any disappointment from your side if you were expecting maybe something that wouldn't fit into the criteria. So the two things that you have to remember about getting the grant is you must have 10 paid society members before you get the application, and you also need to resubmit your society constitution. So we need to have 10 fully paid members, and we need to see your society's constitution for us to be able to give you that grant. And if you miss the deadline, we'll obviously do what we can to help you out with that moving forward. But we do only have a certain amount of from our budget available for societies each year. So please try and get it in by that first deadline to ensure that you're not disappointed, and that we do still have that finances available to split between all of our societies that we have.
Yeah, the one point I will return to there is that feel free to discuss it with us beforehand. Just because the applications are due by the 11th doesn't mean that you can't start working on it now and you can't start reviewing and submitting it to us. The student groups and societies, the societies that run their budget past us ahead of time are far more likely to get what they finally apply for, because they'll have had our thought processes input into what they're asking for. So if you're sending us one on the 1st of October, you're going to get our opinion sent back to you, and you're going to be able to reply with a better version of your budget request before the grant deadline. So take some time, send it into us first. We'll look at it, we'll give you some advice, and we'll send it back. Sometimes the advice may be, oh, that's perfect. Yeah, we'll take that. But it's important that you do take the opportunity to get some feedback on it. Obviously, the 11th of October is a Sunday, so if you send us one on the 10th asking for guidance, you're not necessarily going to get anything because it's Saturday. So take these things into consideration and utilize us as and when you can. So sponsorship, it's an additional way for your group to make money. We can help. We see contracts all the time. In a past life, I worked writing contracts, so I know good contracts, I know bad contracts. A lot of the contracts that you'll be signing, in particular this year, may have either no finances attached to them or very low finances attached to them. I think that the realistic way of looking at it is that you're probably not going to be in a situation where you are providing value to a pub, club, or venue that will see them give you a lot of money back. I'll use Revolution as an example. I recommend that if you are contacting them and working with them to come up with a sponsorship number, what they do is they will return 10% of your spend back to you if you hit a certain amount of money. They will always be looking to make that amount of money higher than you want it to be, because it's in their best interest that either you push yourself to spend more money there or you don't make the amount of money that you need to, so they don't have to give you anything. It's in our best interest that you get something. So if you are in conversations with them, I recommend pulling back a bit this year. So if in the past you've said that your group will spend 7,000, maybe pull that back to 2,000. Because instead of getting £700, or instead of maybe getting £700, you will definitely get £200. And it's all about being a little bit more safe and secure this year than in past years. There's no point in gambling with it. And any additional money that you get from sponsorship, normally you aren't budgeting it in so much as, oh, it might come in if we manage this. So make sure that you're being smart with it, trying to get as much as you can, but also putting it in a place that you're likely to go. If Revolution are offering you money to attend their venue, but you and your society will never go to Revolution, don't sign a sponsorship agreement with them. You're better off to have a sponsorship that doesn't give you any money, but gives you, say, discounts on drinks or discounts on renting the space or even free space, if you're actually going to use that, versus signing a sponsorship with a venue that you never will attend that would potentially give you money if you went and spent all your money there. So just think about it in terms of usability rather than just straight cash value.
I think as well, and it probably fits into both sponsorship and then looking at the health and safety. And I'm aware that this training will be available all year, so we won't maybe go into too much detail about what the current position is around the current COVID situation and the guidance around that. But just remember that throughout the year, we're in a very uncertain time at the moment. Things are going to change. Make sure you check with us. Make sure you check what the government guidance is, what the university's guidance is around social events and around hosting society events as well. So maybe it's definitely worth bearing in mind when you're looking at that sponsorship, if you're able to actually go to that venue, as Ewan says, and do it. But throughout the year, just keep checking and come back to us, and we'll always be more than happy to answer any questions or queries you have around that. But it's definitely best to be safer and play it safe.
Yeah. It is a very difficult year for this, and without making it too specific to any one point in the year, in the first semester, we are anticipating that there isn't going to be many opportunities for you to utilize sponsorship agreements with clubs and pubs. So if you are losing the majority of your year in terms of being able to cash in on your sponsorship, it's important to bring down the cash value that you would be expecting to input to that sponsorship. Health and safety. Our health and safety guidance for the past few years has been unique to the union. So we're looking at making things a bit easier for you. The university has a robust health and safety guidance and template. So we are actually going to be piggybacking off of that, and we're going to be utilizing the same system. So the risk assessment guidance and the template for the risk assessment is they're both listed on our website under the society forms. Please read them. Please be aware of them. Additionally, I know in the past that I have said that if you need to put jokes into your risk assessments to actually do them, to do that, I'm going to have to ask that you don't do that anymore because I got in a bit of trouble. So please don't put jokes in them. You can put jokes in the email body and send me the risk assessment as a document that doesn't have jokes in it. But we need to, in particular in an environment where there are significant health and safety concerns just in the general environment, it's important that we do take it as seriously as it is supposed to be. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've got on this. We also, part of the guidance will tell you that you won't need to list off all of the hazards that are expected. So things like, in the past, we've had everyone list off slip, trips, and falls for everything. That if you're on the university campus and you're doing an event and you're using a risk assessment, there are risk assessments in place for students being on campus doing student-based activities. So what you would be filling out the risk assessment for is anything above and beyond those standard student-based activities. So we won't need to plan for slip, trips, and falls, or people using stairs wrong, or projectors falling from the ceiling, because those are already budgeted for in the university's risk assessments for those areas. So fundraising is an additional thing that we're looking at. With us being a bit more digital and remote, particularly for the first semester, one of the things that we've been asked about a lot is the ability to do raffles and sell tickets and things like that. The union website does still have a £1 fee for tickets and for sale items that are not society memberships. So a lot of groups are hesitant to use our website to do ticket sales. What we would recommend that you use is Just Giving UK, because on the back end of that website, you have the ability to disable gift aid. Now, if you are doing any kind of fundraiser where there's a chance that someone who is donating money could potentially get something in return for that donation, it is illegal for them to use gift aid. It's charity law. So we need to make sure that if you're doing that, there's no chance of someone accidentally doing it by disabling it on the back end. You don't want to have someone like, you don't want your granddad giving you £10 and accidentally taking gift aid and committing a crime. So we want to set you up for the best situation and not have your granddad go to jail.
I can't believe that's the example you put.
I mean, I was thinking about it and I was like, my granddad wouldn't use the internet to give money. We'd just be getting sent a check in the mail.
Exactly.
But still, it's something that I know that a lot of groups use, raffles, and this is the best situation to use that. If someone is donating money just straight to your group, they can just donate money into the union account and tag it as for your group. It doesn't have to go through an external funding system like Just Giving, which does take a cut of that money. So for our events, I've highlighted just this area here. This is a few of the events that are happening during Freshers, just a snapshot. I thought it was one of the best snapshots I could get because it just had such a wide variety of different things that were happening. And it shows that we can give you advice and guidance around events and what things you can and should be doing as a society, but you are all experts in the area that you are running a society. You know more about being in a drama society than we do. So like, you're going to know better that doing a welcome workshop and an icebreaker is a great example of a welcoming event for your group, because you are a presentation and stylistic group that works in that way. Whereas the LGBTQIA plus network, they have the gayest challenges. That group, I don't necessarily know what those challenges are, but that is something that is specifically there for that group. So we're going to be looking at throughout the year sessions where we can have kind of just not necessarily like a forum, but just a drop-in chat session where we can have ideas pulled together. Because if I was to be asked to list off different types of event you could do, my brain would just immediately draw a blank. And Ross does the same thing, where if we're put on the spot and we think about it, we're like, I don't know. But if as part of a conversation with different groups, they're asking us like, well, this is what we would normally do. And then we can try and come up with solutions and ways we can turn those events into digital events, ways that we can turn those events into plus value events. So if you're doing the Christian Union sip and sketch, and you're like, how can we make this more valuable and something that is a better experience for our members? Well, maybe look to Grays, look to the Grays art courses and see if there's someone there who can participate. Even potentially look to hire a lecturer as a evening activity and have them put an hour aside where they run a portrait drawing class as part of that. There's lots of different things you can do. But I think that the gist of this is that we are not the experts on this, but we are keen and helpful people as much as we can be. Ross, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't think so. I think you've covered most of it there. Yeah.
I'm now down to the end of my coffee and it's just grounds and I regret that sip. So external speakers is something that we have to cover every year. We've made it a smaller part of this training because the external speakers policy is around the bringing of people who are not university staff, not university students, and not union staff onto campus to discuss things. We, in the first semester, are likely to not have anyone doing on-campus events, so you don't have to run speakers past us if they're doing digital events. However, the point of this is safeguard for extremism. It's important that you are not putting your members in a position where you're having someone come in and speak about things that you necessarily didn't think they were going to cover as part of their presentation. So just because you don't have to run digital speakers past us doesn't mean that you shouldn't be following the same steps as usual to make sure that what content is being provided is what is being provided when that event kicks off. You should be asking external speakers to provide you with a copy of the presentation that they'll be running. You should be asking them who they are and what they're representing. Well, you should know that before you bring them on campus, ideally, and before you have them running an activity. When we are back booking spaces on campus, you will need to be providing us 3 weeks notice of the event, because although it doesn't take us 3 weeks to review every person, ideally you'll be approved within a day or two, and then you can start advertising at that point. You can't advertise an external speaker event until it's been approved. So it's important that you are putting yourself in a position with as much time as possible to get this approved. It's also, if you're having someone come onto campus, the questions that you're going to be asked are their name, the organization they're representing, the topic of their conversation. If you are having someone come in and they're doing a speech on, like say you have someone who works for the NHS coming in to do a speech, but they're not representing the NHS, they're representing some horrific hate group. Don't list the NHS, list the hate group so that we can actually know what this person's supposed to be doing. It's all just really, we try and make it as invasive as possible. We don't want to stop you from having good, controlled debate around controversial topics. That's not what university is about. What we do want to make sure is that if we are doing this, that we are putting things in place with enough time to make sure that events that are like this can go ahead. So don't think of it as us stopping people from being on campus, but think of it as us working with you to put measures in place to ensure that good speakers are able to come on campus. Ross, do you have any questions about external speakers?
I don't think so. I think it was just good to make the kind of clear distinction between what online and off campus compared to what happens when they're on campus. I think you covered everything along the lines of that quite well.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned the fact that just because I did say online versus being on campus. However, if you are having any of these events at venues off campus, again, those rules don't apply. This is all strictly speaking around bringing external speakers onto a university campus, because the part of the ideological part of it is that by providing them with a platform at an education institution, we are providing legitimacy to their claims. So like the difference between someone standing up at a pub and saying hateful things is, oh, look at that crazy person, versus having someone stand up in a university lecture hall and say hateful things is, we as a university have allowed this to happen. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So focusing on communication now, most of you will be aware we provide you with an @RG Union email address. Please use this for your day-to-day communications from this semester onwards, just to ensure that it's all standardized and that we're all on the same page with this. We will be communicating with the @rguunion.co.uk email. I know a couple of you are different, but if you're worried about that, come and speak to us and we can make sure that it's all sorted. Please set up your social media accounts with the @rguunion.co.uk email. That just keeps us all safe and making sure that we're all using it properly. And if anything was to go wrong, it all links back to your RGU Union account. If you get locked out of your email, we can reset the password. The staff team at the union can do that quite easily. So just let us know and we can get that done pretty. If we're sending you emails, please acknowledge them or respond to them. We're doing it to try and keep you up to date, but we need to know that you're receiving them and that you're able to pass that information on to the committee and the wider membership as well. And if you have any issues or any questions or queries, the more that you let us know, the more that we can help. So if there are some small things that you maybe think we haven't communicated well enough, we've not done well enough so far, let us know. We can get it sorted pretty quickly and it stops that all building up over the course of the semester as well.
Yeah, feeding off of that, I do think it's something that is important, that is undervalued, is how much can be solved just by talking to us. Same thing goes for us. If we have an issue, we need to just talk to groups. A lot of the time, I feel like the inability for us or you to come to us and say that there's an issue leads to things becoming more of an issue than when it is completely solvable at the start just by communicating.
So looking at social media, obviously a lot of you will have profiles across social media. You might use some groups and these things. Obviously for internal society discussions, we have set you up with a team, so that's a really good way to use it and allow for that kind of sustainability going forward and ensure that people can check back and find that information. And it's something that students will be using throughout the year and you'll all be using as part of your studies. The other side of social media though is the kind of rules and regulations, the guidelines surrounding that. So I just thought we'd cover the union social media policy. So obviously working quite closely with the university, and we all follow, it's something that the union helped the university put together, is the right click policy. It's something that they are reviewing at the moment as well, but we're still adhering to that. But a lot of it is just common sense. So only give the username and password and give access to committee members don't make those details public and share them with the wider membership. And don't rely on social media as the sole way of connecting with students as well. Use Teams, use email, and use social media. Not every student has a Facebook account. Not every student's on Instagram. So make sure that you can contact them all. I think as well, just the basics is you're representing the union and the university. So don't swear, don't make any offensive comments, don't make any kind of derogatory or offensive comments around the Equality Acts and protected characteristics as well. And don't reuse the RGU or the RGU union logo without permission. Don't change the way that is. And ensure that you're adhering to copyright of pictures, of videos, of any music, of all these things. And of course, the biggest one at the moment, and something, the ongoing GDPR legislation. You've got to be so careful what you do with personal details of society members and with anyone else who you hold the data of. So don't make that information available publicly, and just make sure that it's really closed down and you only use it for what you said you're using it for, what they've agreed you'll use it for, and what you need to use it for.
Excellent. The one point around social media that is also important to remember is that it's incredibly hard to remove dead social media pages. So if you are a group and you're setting up multiple Facebook accounts or multiple Instagrams, those dead accounts will still just be floating around in the ether and will eventually be a little bit embarrassing that they're just there. So it's better to try and be as on point with getting it set up right the first time. And if you haven't done that and it's set up with a different account or things like that, you can change the email address that is linked to accounts. So if you need to do that, you can. But you need to have control of the first email account before you can change it to the second one, which is the problem. So marketing. So a lot of the time, when it comes to marketing, we talk about printing posters, flyering around campus, getting people to engage with you in the physical space of the university. Taking this idea and removing it from the basic advice of posting posters. One thing that some groups do that a lot of groups haven't either considered or don't think is a valuable resource is utilizing Facebook, Instagram for paid marketing and promotion of your events. It's not something I would say you should do for every event and all the time, but you can and should be looking at ways that you can expand your audience. Facebook and Instagram have algorithms, so you can essentially target university students at RGU in Aberdeen. Or you can build it down even further. You can go university students at Aberdeen who study at RGU, who are doing engineering. Like, you can find your audience by paying Facebook to do the work for you. So if that is a way that you choose to spend your society money this year, that's a very valuable thing to invest in. Make sure when you're creating events, you do it with a week or two of build-up time before the event. So you're not just creating an event and being like, people attend tomorrow. You need to have the event available for people to see with enough time. And it's important that you should set up a schedule of when and how you plan on telling people about this event. Don't just like randomly post on a Monday and then forget about it till Thursday and be like, oh guys, yeah, event. Like, think about how this event will engage with people at different points in the week. Do you want to be sending it out Monday evening and then again on the Thursday evening, because you know that those are times that your course is free, or you don't want to be posting during 9 to 5 Monday to Friday because you're in pharmacy and you know you're a very busy course. You want to make sure that your posts are more evening related. Think about these things, about how they relate to the audience you're trying to reach. Remind people about your event. It should be things like, hey, I'm doing a cook along. This is a really cool thing. Let's get excited about it. And then it's during the week ahead of time, hey, we're going to be cooking mac and cheese. It's going to be really exciting. Here's the ingredients list. And then the day before, hey, reminder guys, you need to go out and buy the stuff to make the mac and cheese if you want to do this cook along that I'm doing. And then a few hours before, who's ready to make mac and cheese tonight? Well, like, it's you take an event and you break down the stages before it. I've just made myself hungry now. That's a very bad choice. But you should be building hype. Like, your events shouldn't be flat. They shouldn't be uninteresting. If you're doing a quiz, you should be building up to the crescendo of the quiz is happening and this is a big thing and it's cool and you should be involved and you should be engaged with us, rather than just being like, oh, there's a quiz. It might be crap, but there's a quiz. Do it maybe if you've got nothing else on. It's like, no, you don't want to miss this. This is the quiz.
I think as well, so just from marketing, communication and events, just a few things that's probably worth noting and that will be quite hopefully useful this year is: one, work with other societies, put on collaborative events, especially in a year like this. It's a great way to increase participation and also allow you to take advantage of the kind of expertise and the committees of various different societies. Also, if you're running events, if you're running, as Ewan says, like paid posts on Facebook, anything like that, tag the union. We'll always be willing to share it. We get a lot of messages from students asking us if we can put up a social post about this, just from the fact that we don't have a lot of staff resource from our side, from the marketing and comms. If you tag us, we'll see it and we'll just share it straight away, and that gets it done, and that allows the students from our following to see it as well. And finally, make sure you use the What's On page on the website and upload your events, because that allows us to include them in any information that we're sharing, whether that be the upcoming bulletins, whether that be for our social, as I've said, and it also allows the exec to know and be able to share it for their accounts, and bear that in mind when we're putting on any union events. So if you do that, then that should allow for a really good way for students to find out what's going on and to increase that participation.
So one of the less fun parts of being in a society is sometimes there is conflict. It can be conflict between committee members who feel like they're not following, they're not doing what they're expected of. It can be conflict between members and committee members who feel that there's issues there. It can be issues between just two standard members. If you have any disputes within your society, please contact us. So you don't necessarily even have to contact us just for advice. If you're having an issue, the best thing you can do is let us know, even if it's not something you want us to solve. Tell us about it when it starts, and that way when you come to us saying that it's grown, we're not blindsided by being like, whoa, why has it got to this stage before you let us know? Like, keep us involved, keep us engaged. We're not here to immediately step in and say, well, you're dealing with this wrong, we're going to fix this for you. Like, no, it's a collaborative approach. We can mediate if necessary, especially if the disputes are between committee members. The important thing for you guys to remember is when you're bringing the union in to mediate, we're not there to take sides. Our goal is to make sure that all students are equally happy or comfortable with the results of the mediation. We're not there to assign blame. We're there to find solutions. It's a solutions-oriented process. It's not, well, clearly Ross is the reason that this has gone wrong, so I think that what we need to do is get rid of Ross. It's, no, the issue is there's been a miscommunication around the expectations of the vice president role. And Ross, as the vice president of our society, wasn't aware that he was responsible for the minutes, or wasn't aware he was responsible for keeping the forms up to date around the society's governance. So now that we've had this conversation and there's been mediation, Ross is now aware of this. There's no excuses going forward that it's something that he was just unaware of. And now if Ross continues to not do it, at that point, it becomes more of a problem that Ross is just choosing not to do it rather than not being aware it was his role. And then again, we can come back in, and mediation is a constant process, working to help make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on. We don't want to see someone leave a committee position, or if the society, or even the society at all. And that's the last option. We will always look for solutions to the problems. Yeah, there's a flow chart here. Whenever a conflict emerges, the committee is the first step to trying to resolve this issue. Obviously, if you don't feel comfortable, you can skip that step and come straight to me. I'm not going to put you in a position to deal with something that you don't feel comfortable doing. That's not your role. If I come in and I am unable to help you come up with a solution to this, the next step from there is to bring in Ross as communication and democracy president and the general manager, and then we will work from there to try and find a solution. Worst case scenario, we end up having the committee take a vote on the outcome based on suggested outcomes. Ross, do you have any questions around that you want to?
I don't think so. I think it's just to highlight that point that you made, that come to us early on if there's an issue, don't. And it's the same with if you've got any questions or issues with what we're doing at the union, is just let us know, have that conversation. It can just be an informal chat. It doesn't have to be anything major, but it just allows us all to be on the same page and be able to support if anything does escalate or if it does get worse going forward.
Yeah. So volunteering, all society committee positions are volunteers. We collect our volunteering hours annually, and this is done at the end of February. So this goes from the beginning of March 2020 through to the end of February 2021. So you are responsible for keeping track of your own volunteering hours up to that point. And then you will be submitting them at the end of the year. If you submit them early, likely what you're going to end up doing is submitting them again. So it's always best if you submit them once. That way we know that there's no double hours being given out or anything like that. Being in the committee is volunteering. So that includes things like checking the emails, participating in committee meetings, planning events, answering social media queries. Yeah. Many aspects of being in a committee fall under those roles. Generally, society members are not volunteers. If you have members that you are giving roles and responsibilities to that aren't necessarily committee roles and responsibilities, but they are volunteering their time and efforts for the betterment of the group. So whether that is a small section of your society come together to help plan the ball, those hours can be committed as volunteering hours as well. So it's being smart and making sure that if someone is doing something for the group, it is done officially through that capacity. And then you as a committee member are responsible for telling them that they can submit those hours. AGM and democracy. So this is a very dry and slightly blurry section of our presentation, which I apologize for, but I'm going to hand over to Ross.
Yeah, so very close to the end of the training now, so stick around. It is a bit dry, but also very important throughout the year. And as you approach the end of the year as well, we've made some changes this year, which again will come into effect from the 28th of September. The changes they're not massive, but they will help you in dealing with it. So we'll just run through them really quickly. So as you know, you'll have to have an AGM at the end of the year. All members must be invited and must be given at least 14 days notice. Only full paid members can vote or speak during the meeting. So the agenda should be sent in advance, and as well as the minutes from the previous AGM, and then the activities throughout the year, and the various other things that you can see there. Minutes must be taken of the meeting, with detailing the items discussed and the votes cast, and this is something that's just been made a bit more specific this year, is they must be shared with myself or whoever's in the comms and democracy position within 10 working days of the AGM. We need to be up to date with what's going on at the AGM and what's happened in the election. And if that wasn't to happen, then that can impact the grant request in the following year. So the quorum for the AGMs are 50% plus one of the current membership. The president or another nominee from the committee should chair the AGM, and they may invite representatives from the union to support the AGM as well, if that's something that you're a bit worried about.
And this is the section that we've just added, which Ross will cover. Yeah,
so every year we have a few societies that have maybe not managed to get that quorum required for the AGM, or even hold an AGM and have the elections in place as we'd like. So we've put these clauses in this year to ensure that if you can't get an AGM, there's still that sustainability going forward, and we can work together to ensure that you can be ready for the next year. So this is only if you have gone through that step. You have given every society member 14 days notice. You have gone through all the steps that we detailed on the last slide. If you're not able to get that quorum present, or it's not sustained throughout, so if some people leave, and then the meeting should be adjourned at that point, and it should be rescheduled within 10 working days. So if at the rescheduled meeting the quorum is still not present, all matters on the agenda will be delegated to the Society Committee, but these must be dealt with in consultation with the President of Comms and Democracy and the VP societies. So that allows that if you can't have the AGM and decisions need to be made, or we're looking at kind of appointment of the committee for the next year, you can look at that as a group in consultation with myself or whoever in my role and the VP societies. And it's also just worth noting that as with it all, anything that you decide in that group following an AGM not being able to take place can be questioned by a quorum of 50% plus one of the current society members, which is what obviously you need for a usual general meeting. And if anything does go wrong, they will still be subject to the external ruling through our own complaints regulations as to.
Yeah, so the very, very brief summary of this new thing is you must try and have your AGM. If you fail to have it, you have to retry and have it. And if you fail to have it again, there is a clause in place where that would then fall to the existing committee to deal with the continuation of the society. The following clause after that essentially says that you tried to have it, and the committee then had to do it because no one can do it. If the general society body is upset with this, they are then responsible for holding an AGM. So it's not a way of us getting around AGMs as much as us putting steps in place for those societies that need there to be a clause there for when quorum isn't met.
So next we will look at the elections, which have to happen at the end of every year, obviously, to look at the committee positions. So as always, there's those 4 committee positions. So for the election next year, that will be the president, the vice president, the treasurer, and the communication and engagement lead. So all members of the society are eligible to stand in the election, as long as they will still be students at RGU the following year. And as you know, all committee members do need to be students at the time that they are on the committee. So it can either be for an open ballot or a secret vote, and that will probably be detailed in your constitution and something that you're going to have have a look at to make sure you're adhering to. So the next stage kind of just explains what method you should use depending on whether you've gone for the open vote or the secret ballot. But it does have to be counted by an impartial individual, and if you want, the union can support you with that. They can oversee the elections to ensure that it's a fair democratic process, and they can also help with the counting of votes if it's done in that way. And yeah, so a candidate must achieve the majority of the votes to be elected to the society committee positions. And we saw quite a success this year, Ewan, that you might want to update on because you were here back in April, is using the union's website for committee elections.
Yeah, we opened up the opportunity for society elections to be run through our website, and then we posted them out so that the societies themselves could advertise. This is something that we're now able to do because each society's membership is listed online through our website, which means that we can specifically exclude students who are not members from voting in these elections, which is a highly useful tool for us to use, and something that we'd look to offer out again this year going forward as something that societies can look at.
Do you want to cover this one, Ewan? It's going on to the development plan as well.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of documents that we look to have societies do, and these are known as the society reporting paperwork. So it's things like an annual report, a handover checklist, equipment inventory, and it's just essentially a report for you as an organization to say what you have and what you have done, and what has gone well and what hasn't, and things like that. And making sure the handover checklist in particular makes sure that you have done what you can to set up next year's committee for success. I know that it can be quite easy to get to a certain stage of the year and just kind of feel that you've done your part and then you can just leave it. But it's always important to remember the feeling that you have right now around, I wish I'd known that sooner. So make sure that you are doing your utmost and your best to put next year's committee in a better position than you are now. We will never judge you harshly if next year's committee do better than you. In fact, if next year's committee do better than you do, I will assume that you have done an excellent job at handing over. We are implementing a development plan this year. It's something that we're looking to do to try and remove the idea that your constitution is such an editable document. It's going to take a lot of the aspects of things like your annual report, a lot of aspects of your budget request, and it'll roll a lot of these, your grant requests, and roll it all in together to kind of like break down who you are, what you do, and what activities you plan on doing, and where the finances for these are coming from, what you're hoping to get out of these events, whether or not those events work the way you'd hoped. And that way you can roll over from year to year, and that document is live, constantly being updated. So you can see a progression of events from year to year to year. We'll show you one of them at the end so you can have a quick look about that. And then it will be something that I contact each group and hope to have a meeting with the committees of each group about during the first semester. Celebration, it's one of the areas that we're actually pretty decent at, is making sure that we recognize both society level achievements and awards and individual level achievements and awards. We make sure that groups that have done great things get trophies, and that individuals who have done great things get trophies too. It is important for you to know that in order to get an award, you must be nominated by a peer. You can nominate your society, but you cannot nominate yourself. You can be nominated by others in your society for awards. So if I was a student, I could nominate, if I was a student and I was the president of the Nursing Society, I could nominate the Nursing Society for awards based on the information I know about the Nursing Society. And I could nominate Ross as the vice president for an award based on the work I know he has done. I cannot nominate myself. But what I can do is say, hey, Ross, I'm going to be nominating you. Do you want to nominate me? It sounds very finicky in particular, but we're not in a position to know off the top of our heads who deserves what. We may think that someone deserves something based on what we have seen, but really the person who's done all the work that we are giving credit to hasn't necessarily done that work. It was done by someone else. And we don't want to be in a position where we're wrongly attributing success and awards. So it must come from you as peers to get those awards. Every year we update information onto your higher education achievement record. And this is like the additional piece of paper in your transcript and your when you graduate that says all the additional things you did that weren't academic related. So on there will be listed things like you were on the committee of a society, you did volunteering hours, you won a recognition award, you won Half Scarlet, and it basically builds a better, well-rounded picture of who you are outside of just academia, and then it's a permanent thing, so that there's always somewhere you can go to verify this. So you can list all of these things on your CV, knowing that you don't have to have someone go off and check it. There's a verified official document that says that you did do that. And like I said, that's where your volunteering hours go as well. And then we have our Student Achievement Awards Ball, which we are very hopeful will happen this year. It's planned to be in late March, early April. It really depends how it falls and whether or not we are able to do it at that time. But it's a fantastic night of celebration of your achievements. It's very much focused on what you have done and what your groups have done. And there's normally a lot of dancing, and it's good fun. That is the end of this slideshow. So I'm going to very quickly pull up a new document. I'm pretty sure that I need to close that and share a different document. So I'm going to pull up the Society Development Plan. As you can see here, it's a fairly editable document that asks you to put in the name of the society mission statement, how many members you had, and then it asks for details on last year's events. And we want you to be as essentially as harsh as you can be about your own things. Things like this work best when you are honest with yourself, a true harsh critic of what you did. If you aren't being honest with yourself, you're not going to see as much benefit to doing this. If you just say that everything you did was great, then you're not going to be able to see much benefit. But again, if you say everything you did was terrible, you're also not going to see any benefit. It's about being realistic and really kind of looking at it. And then for each of your events this year, it's going to ask you for details of the event, and then it's going to ask you to select a strategic priority. So these are tagged to the union's 5 core aims and objectives, which are your community, your future, your opportunities, your voice, and your well-being. So try and find what you feel your activity is going to fit best in. So if you're doing something about the development of skills in your group, that's a your future event. What's the event's name? How much is this going to cost? And tell us about those costs. Are you paying for an external speaker? Are these things going to be ticketed? If it's ticketed and you're planning on having income, enter any income you're going to have in this area here. How many people are you building this event for? Are you planning on having 50 people? And then at the end, we want you to come back and say how many people you actually had. So if you plan an event for 50 people and you got 100, then you put that in here. And then next year, you look at this event and you're like, right, we planned this event and it was so good that more people came than we thought. And then so there's a bunch of opportunities for you to do that. And then a same thing again, if you're doing fundraisers, details of your fundraiser, who's the money going to? What's the charity number of that group? What's the event name? What are the associated costs? How much money do you want to make? How much did you actually make? How many people did you want to participate? How many people actually participated? These are things you can do to make the the review process at the end of the year so much easier when you actually go back and use quantifiable data. Review your entire society. What are your strengths as a group? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your threats? And then at the end of the year, well, not at the end of the year, at the end of the process, you're going to come up with some developmental objectives. And it's going to be something that, again, it's going to have a strategic priority that ties to the union's goals, but it's going to be something that is really your objective. It's not going to be something that I dictate to you. And I don't want it to just be, oh, we want to get 10 more members. Why do you want 10 more members? What benefits do you see from that? Like, there should be real thought that goes into these processes. And then, finally, my last one is the quality mark. So the Society Quality Mark has seen a little bit of upgrade from us this year, and we've tried to make sure that everything is still attainable in a digital world. It's not just us asking for you to have things that aren't possible while socially distanced. So you may see that there's numbers after each of these things as well. That's nothing to necessarily be worried about. These are more for our grading purposes. We've set it up with 1, 2, and 3 as in check-in points throughout the year. So we'll be checking in with you at certain points throughout the year and asking whether or not you've achieved these things. So, for example, the committee have attended society training. There's no point in us waiting to the end of the year to find out whether or not you've attended society training when this training is available at the start of the year. So it should be achieved by the time the first check-in point is done. Whereas we're not going to ask you whether or not you had your AGM until later in the year, because there's no point in us asking you whether or not you've done that until the point of the year where you're actually going to be having an AGM. It's just us trying to be a bit smarter and make these goals seem less daunting. This is all available on our website, so please have a look through and read it all. We do want to make sure that we're giving you the opportunities to really succeed. Ross, do you have anything you want to add before we sign off on this?
I don't think so. I just think thank you for well, you'll be watching this, but thank you for watching all the way through. I think it's a lot of information, but really important, and I hope we've been able to highlight just all the regular things and then some of the updates that we've tried to bring in this year. And obviously, if you need anything, please do get in touch. Our emails are all on the union's website under the who we are or who are we, one of the two tab. So any questions, get in touch, and we're all on social media as well, and we'll do our best to help you.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, Ross. That was my dog. Yeah, she managed to go the entire recording without coming into the office for no reason. And then right at the end, walked in and then just looked at me and went, okay, and walked out. Just wanted to make sure you were still here. She opened and closed the door herself. She's a very skilled dog.
All right. Thanks, June.
Thanks, Ross.
Bye-bye.
Bye.